Okay, welcome back to Awaken with Terraflow podcast. My name is Shae.
And I'm Shannon, and we are a mother-daughter team who like to talk about the universe and spirituality and law of attraction and just universe things. So I'm really excited for our talk today because what we decided to talk about was really the nature of time.
Yes, and you know way more information about this than I do, so I'll be asking you a bunch of questions as you go deeper into the science of it.
Yeah, well, I can't say how deep I can go into the science. I'll just say this. A few years ago, I read this book, A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. It's the only time I ever really felt like I even slightly understood any of this. And it's hard to retain it unless you're in it, like really thinking about the science and everything. But essentially, what happened was like recently, I saw this article where some physicists just won the Nobel Prize for determining that local time is not real. And
Bam! I
so,
was
like that,
talking about this morning. Yeah.
yeah, so that's a headline. Like, what does that even mean? Time is not real, local time isn't real. And just reading the article, and we'll link the article down in the description from Scientific American, basically, is the one I found. There's a lot of articles about this because this is pretty recent news. But essentially, what it is this. We used to think that the universe was like deterministic in nature in the sense of everything existed in a certain space. It could be measured, it had definite properties and borders and boundaries, and everything. Essentially, they used to think if you could measure everything and find out where everything was and how big everything was, then you could determine anything, you could predict anything. But this theory has broken down over time, and quantum physics tells us essentially everything is kind of either a wave or a particle. And actually, what it tells us is that it's actually both.
Mm.
Every single thing, every atom, every particle that we exist in is in both wave and, particle state, basically, right? It's like it exists in multiple states. And in fact, it doesn't exist in the way we perceive it until we look at it,
Right.
until we measure it with our eyes, with our observation. It's super weird. It's really weird because when you really think about it, they did, the famous double slit experiment, essentially, which kind of proved this, which is kind of hard to explain, except for to say this, that they used to think, like I said, that all the atoms in the universe just existed in a particular state, and they were like little mini universes. There was a nucleus and gravity, and everything was circling, and they just existed in that state at all times. But this particular experiment really blew that out of the water, and we started to understand the nature of our reality was very different. That's where people started to say, hey, we're in a sim, and like, what is this, and is this even real? Because the whole thing of like, if it's that whole question of if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to witness it, did it really fall? And
Right.
this is something that Einstein really pushed up back against. He really did not like this idea at all, and to his death never really resolved the difference between physics and like quantum mechanics. The laws of the universe. He could never quite get to it because he really rejected this idea that anything doesn't really exist until it's observed, because it's just too weird.
That's hard to wrap your mind around. I mean, especially when we've been programmed to like this thing is this thing is this thing. But really
Yeah,
no, it's this thing because we're observing it as that thing.
right.
Like
Because we are observing it as that thing because we expect to see it as that, and we're co-creating with others, and we see it and we look at it and it exists because we expect to see that.
yeah.
And experiment after experiment started to show that the observer has an effect on the experiments, which again is just so weird to think about. So when we think about like what is the nature of time, really how do we even describe what it is? Because if you think about it like this, I was thinking about this morning, okay? I know how I exist because I see what I observe, my reality, and I'm breathing and everything. But like, I only know my own existence. In a sense, nothing else exists beyond what I observe. And I know there's billions of people in the world, but they don't even exist to me. I don't know anything about them. I don't exchange energy with them. I know, do you know what I'm saying? So like in some senses, all we are is what we see and experience for our own human self.
Which is
Like,
so,
are we in our own game?
I feel like that just coincides so beautifully with what we have said over and over again of everything is a mirror. Like if nothing is is real unless you put your observation on it, then of course it's just the mirror of exactly what your insides are feeling or exactly what you are projecting onto the thing, the person, the situation.
Yeah, right. So if that's the case, then we know all these different experiments about time, and time exists like faster and slower in different places and all of that, and how we experience time feels different at certain times that where, you know, if you're waiting for something and it starts in an hour and you have nothing to do, we all know that hour is excruciating and you're looking and you're waiting and it feels like it takes forever. On the other hand, if you have something you're dreading, it's an hour away. That time flies. It's
Yeah.
gone. You're like, oh no, I only have an hour left. You're leaving in an hour. We only have an hour left together. It's that. So time in a sense only exists as we are in it and perceiving it for the moment.
Man, I
It seems like,
uh-huh. I could feel
I
that.
don't know. It's
I could feel that in my heart. And it's seriously, it's just dependent on how you're portraying the situation 100%. I mean, you think about trauma and how trauma survivors experience that time.
where time doesn't exist in trauma. It literally doesn't exist. It sits inside of you. And it doesn't matter if it was 40 years ago. Your body does not differentiate between the trauma that existed 40 years ago and the one you just got last week. I mean, yes, distance moves you away from things. And actually, there's a passage in this book I really want to read about time and really how science really measures time. And it makes so much sense as it's described. Because remember, I feel like we had this conversation with Anna not too long ago about how she was saying how every decision you make, you actually make both decisions. So
Yeah.
every choice you make, both choices are actually made. You're just following the timeline of the one.
Yeah.
Okay. But in a different timeline, the other decision, you're also making it. And that's gone that way. And so that's, again, really hard and weird to really kind of wrap your mind around it. But when we talk about go to your highest timeline, what I'm personally talking about is the thought of in any given moment, in any given choice, trying to make the higher vibration choice, the better choice, the choice that leads more toward love, more toward source, more toward joy, rather than more toward ego or selfishness or unconscious behavior.
And
That's
even as you're saying this, it's like we talk about manifestation in the sense of if you're able to think about it, it's already at your fingertips. So if you're even able to think about making a split decision, it only makes sense that yes, that reality is also right at your fingertips. Or
right.
else you wouldn't be having the thought of
Right.
the decision.
It both exists and doesn't exist. So
Right.
what we're trying to do is get to the reality where it's existing because we have both possibilities. And so that's really what the science says, that everything is probability. So now the universe is not deterministic. It's a probable universe where they can say this will probably happen. Then that's kind of where we're at. So like, just the idea, before I read this article, I want to point out the idea of entropy, because this is where we get our perception of time. And entropy being the fact that everything tends to go from order to chaos, right? How ordered things always move toward disorder,
Yeah.
right?
Can you give a
So
real life example of that?
yeah, just think about a house. Okay, a house is built somewhere. Over time, let's say it's never maintained in any way. Over time, what happens to that house? It
Oh,
starts to degrade. It starts to disorganize,
yeah.
right? And suddenly it's like this old dilapidated house. Everything's like that, where you got your brand new fresh muffins that you just made, blueberry muffins, and they're brand new and they're really been organized real recently into the state that sits there for a while and I don't eat it, it's going to disorganize, is it not?
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
will.
That's a great example. Is just like the food on your counter. I mean, you buy
The
an
food on
apple,
your counter.
it's exactly how you bought it, but then 2 weeks later it has hole and it's molding and it's falling apart.
Yeah, our human bodies go into a state of entropy as you age. Also, same thing in a way. So entropy is the fact that the universe tends to go from order to disorder, and that's all based on the idea that the Big Bang and the beginning early universe was more organized, and that it's expanding. And as it's expanding, it's just
Oh, whoa.
okay. So this is all coming into play. Okay, so here I'm going to read this paragraph because this sort of blew my mind when I read it the first time, because it helped really make sense of when we say like there is no time, time's not real, but like we all experience it, so it seems like it's real. Okay, all right. This is what Hawking says. The laws of science do not distinguish between the forward and backward directions of time. However, there are at least three arrows of time that do distinguish the past from the future. They are the thermodynamic arrow, which is the direction of time in which disorder increases. I just talked about that. Okay. The psychological arrow, which is the direction of time in which we remember the past and not the future. And he gives the example of you knock a cup off of your table and it breaks. Well, you don't have the memory of seeing the broken cup and remembering and then it going back into the ordered state later. It only goes forward. You don't back that up. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep.
So where was I? The psychological arrow, which is the direction of time in which we remember the past, not the future, and the cosmological arrow, the direction of time in which the universe expands rather than contracts. Okay,
sense.
so that's how we're seeing and experiencing it.
Okay, I have a question. You're saying eros as in EROS or arrow?
Arrow, ARROW.
Okay,
The
okay.
thermodynamic arrow, because he talks about time being an arrow. And we've talked about before about us being on the leading edge of time, as in we're co-creating, we're on the leading edge of time. So it seems like, right? It seems like we're moving forward, but essentially we're disorganizing. As the universe expands, as entropy happens, and we move toward disorganization, this is how we experience time going forward.
Wow, this is just making so much sense. Just about you think about past civilizations, what you said hit me where it's like did start more organized, and as the universe has we have moved to disorder to more chaos. I mean, you think about the time now, and obviously I can't compare it to say ancient Egyptian times because I wasn't necessarily there, but you think about the difference of just a psychological state, the state of the physical land even, and just how they
Yeah.
were like capturing energy and how they were spending their time and how they looked at everything as a symbol compared to now we have emojis that nobody even thinks about, uses 5 emojis, and like that's a symbol, like everything was
Yeah.
taken up maybe more seriously then compared to now. Whoa, that's just like, yeah, continue.
It's so weird because everything is so cyclical and everything is patterned. We've talked about that over and over, how we like do these patterns of behavior, these patterns of the universe, everything kind of cycles and circles. So is it doing that because we're expecting it, because we're the observers and we're creating it?
Right.
So are we just doing that? Like, can you bust out of that? Like, we know we can, because we know we can go forward in the sense of like soul growth, right? Like, I can move through time and it feels like my soul isn't disorganizing. Is my soul organizing as I expand it, or is it actually disorganizing? That's weird. It's a little bit weird to think about. But like what's happening to our souls if we're just all source energy and we're all expanding along with, we're literally, it's somewhat disorganizing as we expand, as we get bigger, as we take more information in, as we co-create with the universe and expand the edge of the universe, as we're going forward in this arrow that we perceive as time. Although everything just being in layers and existing in multiple states at all time. And it just makes me think of, I was in deep meditation and the universe showed me the state of existence which is, it's really hard to kind of grasp and put into words. But what I was shown was that I exist in multiple states, multiple layers, and that my past lives aren't past at all. Everything is simultaneously happening, and it's all affecting me at the same exact time. Okay.
Right.
But it's like a layer. So it sort of makes sense if nothing exists until we observe. And if time is just sort of our perception of disorganization.
Well, and this is kind of what I'm thinking too. It's like, why are we perceiving disorganization or, why are we perceiving that as bad? Like,
Are we perceiving it as bad, or just we're perceiving it as forward?
yeah,
It's not, I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, definitely not bad, because like expansion doesn't feel bad. In this book, Hawking suggests that we're the universe to start to
contract.
instead of expand, like contract, that we would no longer exist. He says that human beings can't exist in a state of contraction because we can't go backwards, in the sense of suddenly if everything started to organize backwards, we would perceive everything totally differently. But this also makes me think of that weird thing that they found where they did that experiment and they saw that possibly time was going backwards in another. Did you see that one?
No.
There was some, man, I hate that I even brought it up, because I don't have a good firm like grasp of what I'm even saying. But there was this thing where they found out that possibly there was another universe, parallel universes, where time ran the other direction, where time went the other way, just because we're in polarity. I don't know. It's all of this is really weird to think about, because as you know, you go about your daily life and you wake up and it's 8 o'clock and you do a thing, you have something to do at noon, and the next day, and here we are, it's 11, 12, 22 now. And it's like, we perceive all of the things around us as just going along as determined by the universe. But actually, like this, our state of existence is so much weirder and more complex than that. So much more. If we consider that we only see like 5% of like light, like our human eyes are only able to perceive like 5% of light or whatever. So like, what does that even mean? What out there are we even seeing?
I'm even thinking about like the weekends, how the weekends, like the weekend time is perceived differently than like the weekday time. And that's so based on the collective consciousness deciding that. And really, like, clock time, same. Like, the collective consciousness has decided, yep, this is what we're going to go off of, this 24-hour system. And hey, when Friday comes, suddenly the energy feels different because everybody's off the clock. What about that? Like, we're not watching the clock now when Friday, Saturday, and Sunday hit. But as soon as Monday rolls around,
yeah, now suddenly we're back into the construct of the work week or whatever. And so we just click right into it. And that's how sometimes I feel like time just like flies on you, where it's like, how is it November?
Yeah, right. And I'm like, I just said this morning, like, it's about to be December. Like, already it's about to be December. And I'm thinking even on my walkabout during my 1,000-mile hike, how differently time felt. Like, because I wasn't paying attention to time. I wasn't checking my clock. I wasn't checking the clock at all. I was just moving along in my day. You know, it's like 6:30 p.m. and I'm like ready for bed. And that was like not something that you would do in your normal life, but based on like the actual rhythms of the sun and how it was rising and setting, that's what my body adjusted to.
Right. It's like the circadian rhythm. So like there's that other thing that happened where the guy was like down in the cave and he was doing all that research and he decided to not pay attention to what time it was and just let his body rest. And they just found like your human body goes into a whole different rhythm when you're not going off the sunlight. It's nuts. We definitely, we do adjust for sure. And even think about time during COVID, during the pandemic. I remember there was time periods in there which we weren't going to work. I mean, we were at work or whatever, but still, it somewhat almost didn't matter what time or day it was.
Yeah.
For a minute there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, didn't matter. And I even think about back when I was a stay-at-home mom with all you guys little, I often did not know what day it was, and it didn't matter. It literally did not matter to my life what day it was, except for school I had to pay attention to, basically sending you guys to school. But like what my daily routines were the same. It really did not make a difference what day it was.
Yeah.
It honestly didn't. So just how we perceive time and how we go about kind of our existence and our expansion within this time. It's so weird to think about all of this and how just we have such a limited view, it seems like, of our existence. It's like we don't have a good perception of ourselves. We can't often even see what our own actions are. It's nuts, right? Where you'll have yourself doing sort of unconscious things and you don't even notice, you're not even paying attention. So how can we even begin to break down the nature of time and reality when most of us are just like unconsciously living? You're just getting up and doing your daily things and for maybe no purpose, and you don't even know what the purpose is.
Right. Right. I mean, I'm even thinking about my friend Cassidy and I were talking about that time in the morning, like when you're still in a dream state, but you're not in a dream state, and how different time feels there when you're like going in and out of that dream state. And like, I love being in that. I love being in that spot, but how different that is. And you can think about just the different realities that that you live in your dreams, and how time feels different in your dreams. You know,
Oh yeah,
I can
for
have a
sure.
whole day in my dream, but it's only been 1 hour.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, totally. This reminds me of, we were doing like, I was doing like a sleep dream meditation with my spiritual guru, Master Sri Akashana. He was doing this dream thing with us where he put us into a like a dream meditation. And I had a whole giant thing that happened. Like a giant, I felt like we were in that thing for an hour. Okay. So after he pulls us out and he's talking to us, he's like, how long do you guys think we were doing that for? And, you know, we're all typing the chat, and I think I may put like 30, 45 minutes. Like I literally thought that's how long we were gone for. And we were actually gone for 5 minutes.
Whoa.
5 minutes. And I was like, no way, no way. Because I went on an entire adventure during that 5 minute time period where I was like on like a dog sled. And like I went, like I traveled for some time. I found a cave. Like it was nuts. I was like, how is that 5 minutes? This
Yeah.
is, it's like time is so subjective. It's
So
crazy.
yeah, I'm thinking about times where like at my yoga teacher training, we chanted for, an hour at a time, and it felt like that hour was a minute. Like we had just started, like I could have kept going easily. And just how when you're doing certain things, time feels different.
Yeah. And even like the breath work ones where you are doing the intense breath work where you kind of like leave your body a little bit. Those also same thing. Like time leaves, time is gone, time doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in meditation either, because I can definitely go into a meditation and I don't know how long I'm gone. I leave my body and I come back and it's like, whoa, how long was that? It's like the lucid dream state you were just talking about, same thing, where it just like seems like you're in a different state. And
Yeah.
so you are. And that's the whole thing of it. You are,
Yeah.
because the observer determines. So if we're the observer and we're the one determining, can you slow time down? Can you speed time up? What do you think about that? I mean, my sister and I went through a wormhole in Connecticut one time. Like, I swear, it was super weird. Where it was like we were just chatting away, and the next thing you know, we were on the other side of Connecticut, and there was no way to explain how we got from one way to one spot to the other in the amount of time we did. And I've heard of other people doing the same thing, where you just set your intention. I'm going to get there at a certain time. You don't pay attention, and you just move through time differently. Like that's something that's so weird to experience when it happens. But I think a lot of people have experienced those weird like time slips where it's like, what? Wait, what time is it?
Yeah, and I think it begins with like opening your awareness for that to be even able to happen, because that's the whole thing, right? It's all about our own perceptions.
Yeah, it's just, what are we perceiving?
And now I'm just even thinking about like past life regression meditations, right? These meditations that you can go into so that you have access to your past lives. I'm thinking about you saying that, like, simultaneously things are happening all at the same time. That only makes sense. Like, are we just at that moment accessing another, um, reality, like, that is happening simultaneously at the same time? Because how else would we be able to access those memories?
Yeah, right. And what is memory even?
Yeah, what even is memory?
I mean, right? What is even memory? I mean, just we know about how like traumatic memories are stored totally differently, like how we store memory. What is memory? What is that when we feel like we go into a past life and we experience an entire memory to include emotions and everything?
Yeah,
Like, how is that possible? What is that?
I
What
remember
is that?
you put me through a past life regression, you guided me through one, and I was out for, like, hours after that. I mean, I was processing that life. Like, I was actively processing that life. I remember, I can see the spot on your floor where I was literally laying for hours just, like, in a trance, literally, after experiencing just, like, a small blip. I mean, you past life regressed us for about an hour. But to
Yeah.
me, it was like, "Whoa, I just experienced all the emotions, all these things that this one that I did at one time slash am doing right now."
Yeah. And by the way, that was not an hour. That was probably 15 to 20 minutes that you guys were gone. Yeah. It wasn't very long because obviously I was like sitting here doing it.
Yeah.
So that's just that goes to show. And Anna too had the same experience where she came out of that thing with like, oh my God, I saw a thing. And like, what is all that? And this is where it's like sometimes it's really hard to wrap your mind around the nature of our existence. But at the same time, all of this stuff always confirms to me that I am the creator of my existence. Just it just validates it to me, because if I'm the observer and I'm the one that chooses the vibration that I go toward, and I can choose to perceive things a certain way, I can literally say, and I do this on a regular basis, I say everything's always working out for me. I have plenty of time. I have enough time. I don't have to worry about it. And it's like when I say that, that seems to be what happens. I swear that's what happens. You notice when you're like, I don't have enough time. I'm rushing. You literally, it's like time just like goes fast on you. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Because
you can consciously, I will consciously say to myself, I have plenty of time. The other thing I'll do, I'll say to myself, yeah, the day's going to go by real quick.
yeah.
And sometimes it will. Like if I'm like waiting for something later, it's that whole thing. Like I have something at 8 p.m. and I'm really excited for it and I like want to get to it. And I'll just be like, my day is just going to go right by. And it's like it will. It's
Well, I I think about us saying, like, expectations are, like, the killer, but, like, our expectations also, can work in your favor when you have the right intent, right? Like, I'm expecting
so
time to
true.
go fast right now, so time's gonna go fast right now. Or I expect time to go slow right now, it's gonna go slow right now. I think
Yeah.
about when we got together with, our family slash soul family last Thanksgiving, I felt like we were together for a year. We were together for 4 days. I
So
mean,
fun.
so many things happened, like, so much energy was had, all of us together, and that felt like a wormhole in itself. It's like it's so
Right.
interesting. It is hard to wrap your brain around, though.
Yeah, it is. Because what does that even mean for us on a daily basis? If
Yeah.
time doesn't exist and local reality isn't real and everything is just sitting in a state of possibility, well, to me, it's what I just said a couple minutes ago about if that's all the case, then it seems like I should be able to try to shape it somehow. I should like move my expectation toward positivity and like love and source and all of that. That's what I'm going to notice. That's what's going to expand in my life. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That if what I put energy into expands, if everything is energy, and this is all just perception anyway, what am I doing here? What are we even doing here? We're just really trying to expand our soul because we're just part of the universe, and the universe is in a state of expansion. And so, therefore, so are we. And that's what we're doing. We're just trying to expand. We're just expanding,
Well, I know that
you
I'm
know?
leaving this with so many, new things I'm gonna do, like changing my expectations on time, setting certain intention around the time because, yeah, it only makes sense. We're co-creating with this clock that we have,
Right.
collectively decided we are running our days on. So why aren't we using that to our advantage and being able to tap into that higher timeline with those intentions, with those expectations. Makes so much.
Will this get easier for us as a collective as the science starts to really show us the nature of our reality?
Well, you know what I was thinking earlier is like, if everything is a mirror, like everything in our universe that we have right now is a mirror of what we have collectively co-created. So
Yeah,
just the science coming out is telling me that we are changing as a collective, that we're even able to have this article be seen, be read, be understood. Like that's exciting. That's so exciting.
it's so exciting. And that we can't really fully grasp it, I think is okay.
Yeah.
Because if we lived in, 1800 and somebody showed us that, we would have no idea what any of that meant. We wouldn't even be able to comprehend what they were even talking about. So as we expand, as our collective expands and gets more knowledgeable and gains more knowledge and understands more things, I think it will be easier for us all to grasp this idea of co-creation and this true kind of perception that we do control our reality. It's so easy to feel like we're just like part of a cog. You know what I mean? We're just like a sheep. We're just like being pushed along in society. We don't have a choice about it. We're just, we just have our whatever spot we're stuck in, our status or whatever. But like, that's really, it's not true. We really can change our life, change our reality. And we can look at extraordinary humans for evidence of this, that have people that have done that, you know? And we can even look at our own self when we've decided to perceive things differently, when we've decided to look at it differently. I have a real distinct memory of being younger and being that stay-at-home mom. Okay. It's just a weird memory that I have that I'm literally scrubbing the toilet. Okay. And I have this thought to myself, this can't be it. Like, this is what I came for. And it was like, for a second there, it was like I was able to just like pull back, and the universe showed me for a second that this is a blip.
Yeah.
This is a blip. Like, you're just in this moment. It feels like you don't have control over what's happening, but there'll be a time where you're going to wish you're back here scrubbing this toilet. And it sounds crazy, but at the same time, I'd love to spend a day in my
Yeah.
30-year-old body to just play with you guys and go to the park. And do you know what I'm saying? Like, just the beauty of that time and the time of our lives and like the things that we experience. Sometimes we don't appreciate it. We just don't appreciate how we are moving forward in this arrow of time. You know what I mean? And we are kind of like only able to perceive what's happening around us in the moment it is. And I'll even go back to what I said at the beginning about all I know is my experience. Nothing exists beyond me as far as I even know. I'm making this whole damn thing up. This is a whole dream that I'm having. You're just a character in my show. You know what I'm saying? As far as I know. And to you, the same. I'm just your mom. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the mom in your show, and you have a whole universe that you experience that I know nothing about, even though I created you inside of me and have watched you and known you your whole life. You have experiences and you have perceptions that I can't comprehend. And that's just what it is for all of us. All of us are like that. We're all just going along, creating our own realities, co-creating with each other, doing our best, I think.
And I think this is what makes this topic just feel so expansive and like unknown, is because we have been conditioned to think a certain way about time. And so changing your awareness on that isn't like you can just change your awareness on that in a second. It's like, oh whoa, now that I'm consciously aware of this, now I have to be catching myself every single time I am like, oh, I don't got enough time for this, I gotta rush. Well, you're not gonna have enough time. I'm expecting to not have enough time. So now it's just catching yourself in those moments of
Yep,
how you are perceiving things.
for sure. And just slow yourself
It's
down.
not always easy.
It's not always easy, but I've been able to do it. And it's so cool when you can, where it's like, okay, I have my whole day and this is what I'm going to do. And the day where you have 1,000 things in it and it's just like the day lasts forever. And the other day where you just slept on the couch and you binged Netflix all day and that day's gone. You don't even remember it. It's like, doesn't even exist.
Yep.
Nothing happened.
Yeah.
So you can decide to have whatever type of life or day you want. And some days it's totally fine to sleep in Netflix. I'm not suggesting that it isn't.
Yeah.
It's just if you want to create a life and an existence where you're happy and peaceful and content and all of that, you got to take control of your perception of time a little bit.
And
And
this
just,
just makes me feel better about certain things because there's been times where I've like supposed to or need to do a project and it just hasn't felt like the right time and I'm like, F it, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna go do something else that's gonna actually bring me joy. And other people will be like, oh, you're crazy. I thought you needed to do this, this, and this, and this. And it's like, well, now is not the time. Because guess what? I am the perceiver, but it's interesting then seeing the balance of how you perceive it and how people are perceiving you perceive it.
yeah, right.
Isn't that entropy in itself?
I think so. Because even we can have the same exact experience. We're having the same experience right now, but also we're having two totally different experiences right now.
Yeah.
So, um, how do we perceive anything else other than our own view of it? We can't.
And like how things are going to be, how time is going to change when we have things like virtual reality in our every single day life. We already do, right? We already
Oh,
are
we already do.
on us, but when it gets to the point where we all have glasses on and I can like holographically like show up in your living room, how that's going to change. Yeah, we're moving
Seriously, it's
towards.
so right. Virtual. That's a whole. We didn't even talk about that. I mean, anybody who's played video games knows you go to play a video game and you're like, I'm just going to do this one thing, and then 7 hours later, you're like, oh damn, like, right? So, what's that going to be like when we're living in virtual reality? When time, the 24-hour clock doesn't matter. I mean, we're
I mean,
almost kind of
even
we've
on.
gotten a little bit slightly to that already with like there's a 24-hour information anytime you can literally just pull your phone up and get information and be connected to the entire world like in a second. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, it's like even Instagram, even the news feed, you can scroll and scroll and scroll and constantly it's refreshing, right? Constantly you can see the newest thing and how many hours you can spend on that is absolutely insane.
It's
Insane.
insane. It's insane. You don't even know. Next thing you know, 2 hours later, you're like been scrolling your phone. Who is horrified when their phone pops up with how many hours you've been on? Right? You're like, oh man, how many hours a day am I looking at my phone? Whoa, that's that alone. Pay attention to that alone will change your life.
Oh yeah.
Noticing how many hours a day you're looking at your phone.
Yeah, when you consciously decide to like live in the like physical reality where you can touch things versus I'm touching things with like the neurons in my brain instead.
Right, right.
Different. That
So
yeah, that's different.
so crazy.
So
So
yeah, I
cool.
just feel like this conversation right now, there's going to be such even an evolution to what we're thinking right now, like
Oh my God, yeah.
in the near future. Like, and I just love that visualization of us being the arrow and just moving forward. So of course, it's going to only evolve more and more and more.
Right. It just keeps expanding because the universe is expanding. So therefore, so are we. So I don't know if we solved anything anyway at all, but
But if
um,
nothing else, we're bringing to your awareness right now. You get to decide how you perceive the time. So use it to your advantage. Use it to reach that higher timeline,
yeah,
and maybe don't think about it so deeply all the time. But now that you have listened to this podcast, maybe you can, use it as a way to co-create the reality that you're really desiring.
yeah. In the meantime, be so grateful for the moments that you have, that you are perceiving. Just when you live in a state of gratitude, it just does seem like time is a little bit different when you're grateful for what you have and where you're at, and you're noticing what you have, and you're not sinning in lack and all of fear and shame and all those kind of lower vibrations, frankly, that do seem to drag time out unnecessarily long in a way, right? When
Well,
you're depressed, time is slow as hell,
yeah,
isn't it? Like, think about it. When you've been depressed and sad, it like drags, and you're like, when is this ending?
yeah.
So this, I think that's part of like changing your perception of time and changing your ability to perceive time as being something you can work with, not just something that's happening to you.
It's happening for you, right? It's happening for
Yeah, happening for you. It's
yes.
trying to expand you. It's giving you opportunity to expand it every moment,
Woo.
every moment.
And remember to breathe, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, yeah,
Remember.
for sure.
Well, I'm
Well,
so
thank you for this beautiful chat, Shae. As always, I love talking to you. I always love expanding my knowledge and expanding my universe by interacting with you.
yes,
So,
same to you. Thank you so much for all of your knowledge and insights and for bringing my awareness higher. I really appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for spending some time with us today.
yep. We appreciate any likes or shares or subscribes or any of that, of course. But
We're looking for some feedback. So we've gotten some good feedback in the past couple of days. We really want to make the podcast something that's enjoyable and is something that you keep coming back to listen to. So if you have any feedback, any suggestions, feel free to leave us a comment, send us a message. We're here for you.
yeah, we've been trying to expand our self a little bit and what is TerraFlow. So we'll be trying to expand our social media presence a little bit too, just to really put our energy out there a little bit more. So thank you so much for your attention and any energy exchange that you were having with us. We so appreciate, and have an amazing week. We will see you next Monday.
Yep. See you then. Peace.